Hello everybody, welcome to the latest installment of Science of the Storm. First question for today's episode comes in from Animist and he wants to know, can Diablo overpower other players over walls? Yes, Diablo can indeed move other players over walls given the right conditions. Thin walls are no match for the Lord of Terror, but in order to succeed, Diablo and the target must be exactly perpendicular to the wall itself. This can be used to create a clear escape for Diablo himself or his allies, or to simply stick enemies inside your fort's range. But as you can see from the clip in the background, if Diablo and its target are not perpendicular to the wall, the Lord of Terror will make a little step forward to make room for the enemy right behind him. This also applies to thicker walls, over which Diablo is not able to throw players. In my tests, there were also a couple of instances where it looked like Diablo should have been able to move its target over, but was not able to. This is probably due to some very minor issues regarding what we see as a thin wall and what the game actually considers one. Our next question comes in from Austrian Beatbox Champ and he wants to know, what happens when ETC dashes through Zagara's banelings or pushes them back? Do they stay stunned or explode right away? Two different reactions for two different scenarios. In the first example, you can clearly see that ETC is able to push the banelings aside with his face melt, damaging them but not triggering the explosion. This is not the case with his power slide. As ETC dashes through the banelings, they first get damaged and then explode. This leads me to believe that, although the damage is not enough to kill them, connecting with his body will actually trigger the explosion. Our third question comes in from Ahmed and he wants to know, what will happen if Stitches used his gorge on an enemy right before getting gorged himself? As you can see from the clip, as soon as I gorge Zeratul, the enemy Stitches gorges me. Once I get out of the enemy Stitches' belly, the timer on my own gorge appears to start counting again from the exact same point it was before I got eaten, meaning that it completely stopped while I was inside the enemy. And the same principle applies to Zagara's Maw as well. Brainy Epic also mentioned an interesting interaction. In theory, if Stitches got control of the Dragon Knight while an enemy was stuck inside him, said enemy would be stuck inside Stitches for the full duration of the decay. We tried to recreate that numerous times, but the result was always the same. Even if the gorge timer was not yet depleted, Stitches will spit out its victim before taking control of the dragon. Since there is proof that said interaction was indeed a fact, I am relatively sure Blizzard fixed it in some patch. And the final question of this week's episode comes in from Rupert Dupert, which wants to know, does the game explode if Chen tries to push Diablo with his Wandering Keg while he is casting Lightning Breath? Sadly, the reaction is way more tame. As Diablo is casting Lightning Breath, Chen is able to walk right through him, although much more slowly than usual. This is probably because the game still registers the impact as a mini stun, thus creating a collision between the two bodies. If you, like me, are wondering if that is the case if two Chens barrel through each other, yes, the interaction is identical. Although, while testing this, we came across another interesting fact. If a Chen pushes another Chen while the latter is channeling Fortifying Brew, the channel will not be interrupted. At least, not all the times. In our numerous tests, we tried different talent setups and different surroundings, but we couldn't find a pattern that could lead to an answer to this odd behavior. It hardly seems like something that is working as intended, and I will need much more data in order to identify the cause. Right now, my best guess is that Chen's talent Swift Reflexes, which makes him dodge a basic attack every 4 seconds, is somehow interfering with what would seem like a very natural interaction. This concludes this week's episode of Science of the Storm. As usual, you can find the link to submit your questions in the description box below. I am SunGlare, the Italian gamer, signing out. Thanks for watching.